a pain.
And we are live, despite the 6 million buttons that I now have to press. So we are joined, Mark is in the car. But we are all here. So I think that's the bonus. So welcome everybody. And so, this is quite the last month we talked about quiet bravery, or leading with quiet bravery. And what does that actually mean? And this idea about how trust becomes this true measure of strength. But we're taking this step forward in this conversation now, because it's that thing around performance, that mask, that thing that says, this is what we should look like to be successful, to be someone. And yet the reality is that who should we be? How should we show up? How, because it's silent. I mean, I loved the post that you wrote today that we needed to divorce everything, Mark. That clearly caused quite a storm on social media, like divorce. I mean, I know Dan was like, I didn't think I was going to be talking about divorce this evening. But it's true. It's like, we've got all these shoulds. We need to, whatever else. And so I guess that's what the performance is. But how do we move beyond that? And I suppose for me, Dan, you talk about masculinity and where we are conditioned to be something. What is that performance for you? Anyway, I've kind of done like a whole
So what we end up doing, Laura, right? Early in our life, we stop to trust ourselves. We get messages from the culture, from the people around us, from figures of authority, from our parents, from our education, that our inner guidance is wrong, because we follow what our inner guidance tells us to do as children. We do what we feel like is right in the moment. We get told off. And often it's difficult to separate the person from the behavior. So you walk away as a child taking meaning from that interaction, going, well, my heart told me that was right. And then, but all these figures of authority tell me that's wrong, right? There's something wrong with me because I got that wrong. So you walk away from that interaction with a small t trauma, thinking that there's something wrong with you and no longer trusting yourself. Now, from that moment, we diverge from who we are, because what we begin to do is we begin to perform a version of ourselves that we think is acceptable. So when we learn, I can't trust myself, it's like, okay, I have to fit in now. So we're all wired to want to fit in because we're social animals. We are wired for the Stone Age. And in the Stone Age, we hung around in tribes. We want to fit in. Yeah. It's a drive we have within us. So we start to perform, we start to mask, we start to try and be what's acceptable, what other people like. What I very much did as a young man in my 20s is I joined in with the people around me. It wasn't who I was. I was out of integrity. I didn't really like it, so I spent most of my life drunk. But that's what I did. And we all do that to one extent or another. And then as you get into your 30s and into your 40s, you've diverged so much from who you are that you're constantly living out of integrity. It's like you've sold your soul. And living out of integrity is stressful, right? The reason we fail a lie detector test is because it picks up the stress response, because we don't like lying. It stresses us to lie. If we're performing a version of ourselves all the time, we're constantly lying to ourselves, to the world. So we're walking out of integrity and we're stressed. And when we're stressed, we can't think straight. We find life difficult. We become irritable. We become miserable, and everything's more difficult. And everyone accepts that as reality. Yeah, that's the nature of it, Dan. Yeah. So I've been surveying people recently from my mastermind. I read one today. This guy, he had this list of stuff He was overthinking. He lacked confidence. He lacked belief. He was trying to keep people happy. He was all this stuff. And then at the bottom of the thing, it says, would you like more information on how I can help? No.
And so I'm gonna go over to Mark, who is like, you know, like doing a million plates on whatever, swirly sticks, whatever else, as he's sitting in the car waiting for round 2 or the second half, is that what they call it, of the football match? I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't do these things. I just do the couriering for, like, you know, for like taking my nieces and nephew like from A to B and maybe C to D, depending on how complex the day is. So,
the very fact, Dan, I think that's wonderful that he said, I don't want to know about how to change any of this, right?
Yeah, so it's like,
it doesn't want.
It's its reality. It's normality.
100%, 100%. And it reminds me of I was given an in-person session there, a talk with a company. So I was doing 4 hours on like well-being for performance, right? Which we're talking about here, right? Beyond the performance. And one person said to me, we've all heard this phrase, right? About how they, you know, oh, sure, look at, you know, if you take anyone else's problems, you want your own back. And I just thought, yeah, but that doesn't mean your own are okay. Like, it just means that you're used to the ones you have. It's all. And to have to learn how to get used to a whole brand new set of problems, that's difficult again, because you're starting from scratch going, oh, Jesus, what are these problems? Now I have to assimilate these and tell a story around these problems. I already have a story I'm telling. I don't need a new story. And I think there's a little bit of truth in that. And there's an innate laziness in a lot of us too, for like, oh, this is easy. It's easier to put up with shit than it is to actually do something about shit, you know? And I think for a lot of people, like, you know, somebody asked me today only, like, you know, I've been talking about coaching, and then they sent me an email today, like, saying, look, what will I have to do to get value out of it? Like, and I was like, there's a big question in that, right? And I said, right, well, I'll put it to you very simply. You got to be honest. And I said, and they went, what do you mean honest? I said, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with the answers. You got to be honest with your effort. If you are honest, you will get results out of this process. But if you run from it, if you hide from it, if you're not willing to change from it, you won't get anything. You'll end up being frustrated and not going anywhere. And I don't want that either, because I don't want to waste my time as you don't want to waste yours. And I think there's a part of that really is like, and your man was honest, Dan. I don't want to change. He was honest, you know?
Yeah.
And I suppose the reply to him in many cases is, okay, well, I'll see you when you realize it's time to change. I'll see you when you realize I can't put up with this anymore.
He's in touch with me now, Mark, so I can work on him now. I can start planting seeds. I can start to demonstrate to him that there is another way, right? Which is that phrase that me and you love so much. You know, it doesn't have to be this way, right? So I can start to show him now that it doesn't have to be this way, and hopefully then he'll start to get the idea. I don't have to perform this version of my life. This story that I've created about how everything is, I can change it. I can take control of it. I can actually brush away all this noise and just be me.
But I think the thing for me, and I think this is what, you know, kind of gone on through my day today, and I'm kind of hearing it in both of what you're saying, is it's this thing around, it's not straightforward. You know, it might take a bit of effort, but like, how much effort does it take to give this like mask or whatever else, what you want to call it, performance, whatever, versus like, you know, so I'm not going to go into detail as to what happened today. Suffice to say, I kind of came away and go, okay, so you're prepared to sit in a meeting once every 2 months and just add to the noise, waste 2 hours of your life, because actually just saying something means that you feel like you're contributing, but actually you're not, because actually nothing happens as a result of it. And I'm just going, what is the value of that? And ironically, I am only responding in the way I'm leading this particular group because of what they had shared in the first instance when I'd asked them what did they need. And so I've been struggling with that all day, because I just go back to this place of, when it comes to what do we value, what is this place of integrity, when we strip it all back, what is it that we're all here to do? And I think, we all want to achieve the same thing, but the more that we try to perform, to create this persona, the more we actually disconnect from the reality of what we need to achieve. Maybe I'm just a little bit,
No, I think
emotional
right,
for the day's events, but
yeah, and the thing is,
I'm
with
just
today's work,
questioning it in my head, and this is just a completely live. It happened like about 2-3 hours ago, and my brain is like blown by it, because I just, I go to the point of like, well, how do you change that?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? And you need some self-awareness from the person who did that, because it's rife in the corporate world. People who have to be seen to be doing something. And I used to work at the BBC. There were buildings full of these people, buildings and buildings, floors and floors, hundreds and hundreds of them. They never got made redundant. The people that made the telly did. But these people, and God, did they look busy with their clipboards and their bits of paper and their spreadsheets, and it's all made up. And this is what we do. We make all this stuff up so we feel important, so we feel like we're doing something. So because we're so concerned about what we think other people think about us, and just let that sit for a second, and how insane it is. We all do it, right? I'm not saying I'm holier than thou, I'm better than anyone else. I've been there, judging myself based on what I think other people think of me, making choices on that basis, making decisions on that basis, performing a version of me on that basis, right? Because I think it's acceptable, because I'm trying to demonstrate my value. And as men, we like to demonstrate where we are in the hierarchy and what our status is and respect is. And sometimes if we talk loudly and confidently and importantly and bang the table, and people go, oh, that guy. You could have said absolutely nothing, like our orange friend out in America. He's sensational at it.
Mark, I know you're like absorbing in the world in your car, but
well, I can't actually see the game because it's on the pitch down there, so you're fine. The challenge is there's so much noise. And the noise is not just external, the noise is internal as well. And we tend to tune into the internal noise in the wrong way. That you should be better, you should be doing this, you're not strong enough, you're not, you're not rich enough, you're not promoted enough, you're not good enough, all that kind of internal noise that comes with it as well. And like, I know there's safety mechanisms that hold us back, but unless we figure out how to tune out the noise, the external and the internal noise, we can't find that better way to perform, because we're always listening to that nattering. And I love that, like that line you said there, Dan, we're all there sitting there wondering what people are thinking of us. I often think, like, if two people having a conversation and the two people are sitting opposite each other wondering what the other person is thinking about them, we're extraordinarily narcissistic, like every one of us, like it's extraordinary that we are, because we're our favorite topic. What do we want to talk about most? I want to talk about me. Just ask me about me and I will talk about me all day long. Like, and you meet people and they will never ask you a single question about you, and they'll just talk about themselves all the time. And after about 10 minutes, you're like, I'm kind of done here, and it's not just because you're being rude. It's also because I haven't got a chance to talk about myself yet, right? And it's that whole ego and that piece in us, like, because we're always trying to portray and build out and let people know of this great person, this wonderful person that we are. Sometimes it's to try and convince ourselves. And it comes back to that what shuts down
the Mark, is we're trying to convince ourselves.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Across you, because I think that is the absolute crux of it, is we are trying to convince ourselves because we don't have enough faith in ourselves. And I think that is where all of this comes from. That's just my broad brush approach to life, but
that's
I
definitely
think
what it
you
is.
just
Lack
hit
of
it on
awareness.
the nail on the head.
Yes,
Sorry.
and lack of faith, lack of trust, lack of belief, and lack of self-awareness. I used to think as a youngster I was quite self-aware. I wasn't.
But I think it's the lack of strength in us. I think it's the additional bit that you say, Mark. It's that lack of, all of what Dan describes, but also the bit that's almost the cherry on top of the cake, that's the whole piece, that says we have just, we're so busy trying to fit into everything else so that we can belong and all the rest of it, that we've lost all sense of who we are, what we stand for, because we haven't got a bloody clue anymore, because the world's so busy telling us who we should be. So, where should we get that from? And then what do we do? How do we formulate that plan that says we know what to do? Then we get into a whole place of, well, I've already started this path. An SH1T, what do I do then? Because I'm like already committed. And then I've either failed or I'm so financially screwed that what do I do at that point?
But like, there's something that always strikes me. When I'm working with a group of people and in an office somewhere, and when you're working with them and there's tension, it's not easy. There's an edge, and then sometimes you're working with another group of people and they can crack jokes and you can feel the psychological safety within the room, within the space. So these people are psychologically safe with each other. There's a knowledge of each other. There's an acceptance of each other. There isn't that same, could be little bits of tension and judgment and all that, but they're actually psychologically safe, so they can actually take the piss out of each other and be okay with that and comfortable with it. I think one of our biggest challenges is we aren't psychologically safe with ourselves, which is such a strange thing to say. Hence we have these.
Strange but true, though, Mark.
Yeah. But it's just hence we build the support structures that are a replacement for psychological safety, that are a substitute for psychological safety. But they can be knocked down very easily because we aren't psychologically safe in those spaces.
No, I am totally with you, Mark. I think there is a process for everything, but actually, where's the emotion in the process? And I think that's where it all starts to fall apart. So, I guess
that's fragile, isn't it, as well?
Well, no, totally. And I think it's in the bid for efficiency, the world has said efficiency looks like this, but actually forget humanity. Forget, and of course, then we as people in the world go, okay, well, now I need to fit in that model, and that model looks like this, and therefore we forget everything that we need to be. I don't know, it's such a huge thing. It's the thing that I continually go over my head is this whole thing around to be yourself in a world that's trying to make you into something else.
Yeah,
that's the greatest accomplishment. I forget who was it. I forget who said it. Was it Ralph Waldo Emerson or another? But I think
it was Dan. Dan said it last month.
Okay, all right. Dan Glyde said here it is. But I think that's the thing for me is like, if we peel back all that layer of this is what we present, what is, because there's a huge cost to us. It doesn't matter whether it's men, women, there is huge cost when we put on this image, this performance, this bravado, whatever you want to call it. but yet we still do it.
It's one of the biggest causes of burnout, is all the performing and the mental energy it takes to edit yourself and all those things. Is just unbelievable. It you know, that's what's tiring people out. That's what's making people exhausted. That's what's giving people constant fatigue, because it takes so much energy. All those you know, those things we said, that we create those thought processes and those behavior patterns to try and keep us safe, to try and keep us safe from our feelings as much as anything else. That's what we're trying to keep ourselves safe from. It's the feelings we don't want. And you know, and that's so tiring. And it means you don't have the energy to do the things you love with the people you love, to really be there and be present. When you're performing all the time, you can't be present in the moment, because you're always up here making plans, second guessing, going around in circles, wondering about what he's thinking, she's thinking, they're thinking. And so you can't ever just be. You know, we're human beings. I remember one of the first ever conversations we had, Laura, was this conversation about we're not human havings
versus doing.
Yeah, or even human thinkings. We're human beings, and being is all about sensing and feeling. That's being. And when we're so busy performing, we're not sensing and feeling. We're not being curious about the world. We're not taking in everything that's around us. We're not making deep connections with other humans, because we're not listening, because we're up here trying to protect ourselves, wondering about how what we're saying is being perceived and received, because we don't trust ourselves. We don't know ourselves. And you know, that's what the work I've been doing for the last 7-8 years, just getting to know, who am I? What do I really care about? What do I really want in my life? What do I really want for and from the world? What can life give me? What can I give life? How can I improve myself, the world, my environment, the things around me? And what I know is I trust my feelings. If things light me up and I feel pulled towards them, I move towards that, because I know that's it. That's the thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There will be resistance. There could be doubt along the way. That voice is going to come. Are you sure about this? You sure? Is this you? Are you sure? How do you think they're going to, so up the road's going to think when you do this, you do that? That voice is still there. It's in me, you know, the same as all of us. But it's developing that self-awareness muscle to spot that voice and go, do you know what? I don't need you right now. I'm good. I am safe. I'm not going to get eaten by a bear. You don't need to kick in my fight or flight and all these defense mechanisms. I'm good. And the more you can do that, the more I do that, the more I am to just genuinely and authentically be myself. And I know when I'm not, because I get anxious, because I get tired, because I get irritable. I know then I'm out of integrity. I know then I've got to hang on, stop. Out, and I don't always catch it straight away. Sometimes I'll ignore a couple of the early signals, because I still have the old thought patterns and behaviors and the push on, and you're all right. Yeah, I'm fine.
Learning.
I'm a work in progress, right? But that's, you know, and it's spotting that then that when the story kicks in, when the ego gets in the driver's seat, right? Our ego's a wonderful part of our mind, but you don't want it in control. You don't want it in the driving seat. It's that wants to be safe and familiar and all these things that aren't us.
So how's your ego, Mark?
It depends on where I am and what I'm doing. Sometimes it takes over completely, of course. Like, it depends on where I am and what I'm doing. You know, like there's an exercise I do with a lot of my clients, especially people who are struggling for self-confidence, struggling in the doubt space. And it's a 2-part exercise, because part 1 is horrible, right? And part 1 is where I get them to take some time and to write out for me a list of their achievements. And like, it's not like, you know, I'm great achievement. It's what have I done? Like, I've got this promotion, I'm bought a house, whatever it is. And achievements or successes or things that make them proud, feedback they've received, all these kind of things, right? And for a lot of us in that space of self-doubt and, for some of us who are very high in the ego and we throw a list together within seconds, it's like, whoa, wait a second now, hold on. If you could do that within seconds, right, then we're in the ego space here, right? But it's when we get to the truth of things and we find this list. And people really struggle and they have to send it to me. And then I'll ask them about it. Now, I'm not going to challenge them. I'm not going to question them in a negative way. I'll ask them, how did it make you feel? What does that mean to you that you've done this kind of thing? And it's very difficult for people to do it, because we tend to see, oh, well, that's ego. That's me saying I'm amazing by looking at all the successes. But then the part 2 of the exercise is going, okay, so what are the skills or the mindset or the attitudes that allowed you to achieve these things? And then when they start filling that out, then suddenly they begin to see, oh my God, look at who I really am. Look at these things about me. Look at this. Look at this. I'm someone who's determined. I'm someone who's willing to push the boat out for something that I love and that I want. And suddenly it means, and what's really key about this, right? Because we want to go to beyond the performance, right? So how do we get to that space? Is suddenly, instead of living in that space of doubt of who am I see who I am. I see who I am when I'm at my best. How do I tap back into those things? So, because we're not starting from scratch and trying to fill that gap in from here to here with ego or with bluster, we're actually starting up here. We're really far up here is where we're starting. We're building on this all the time. And I think that's a real key thing for us to try and tune back into. What are we actually building on? You know, what has come before us, even for someone. And you know, you posed a thing there, or what if I'm down a career in such a way and I'm earning so much money and everything is, hold on, if you go to change what you do, everything you've learned, everything you've experienced, everything you know is still there. You haven't thrown that out. And you build on that there. And I think for me, it's just so many of us have so much ability and so much talent that we just can't see it. Like when I was talking about divorce, right? That post I put this morning about divorce to bring it full circle. The reason I was talking about that is because I want to post a review tomorrow morning that a testimonial that a wonderful, wonderful woman I've been working with for the last couple of months gave me, right? And the testimonial was a reflection on her journey. And the first moment I met her, within 20 minutes of meeting this woman, I was like, oh my God, this woman's amazing. She was just amazing. I was just so impressed by her. And what I realized, she couldn't see it. She could not see this amazing person at all. And that's what I see with so many people. Like, so many people are amazing away from ego, amazing as a human, as a person. And if we begin to get out of our own way so we can see that version of ourselves that our ego is defending us from, because we don't want to hurt that person. We don't want to get that version of ourselves hurt. So therefore we keep ourselves safe. But if we get out of our way and let that person breathe, life can be magic.
But I'm going to go one stage further with that, because I think there is, and I forget her name, her surname, Rachel is her first name, if I recall correctly. And she says, you know, we can't see ourselves when we are so in the picture. And I think that is, it's not necessarily that we always don't see our brilliance. It is just that we are so caught in the noise, we have no ability to step back, which is, you know, why we all do what we do, because we allow people to step back so that we can see ourselves in the picture. And, you know, I say, when I read this piece from her, I was just like, it's exactly the moment that you're describing, Mark, where here is somebody who's incredibly amazing, but she's caught in the noise. And I don't mean noise as in necessarily nasty noise, it's just the noise of life. And I see that increasingly in the world I'm operating in right now, where that is distracting people from what they are really capable of doing and have the ability to offer to the world. And I think that's the challenge, is how do we find people, you know, and maybe it's like people like ourselves who can ground others to go, you know, like, look, this is, you don't need to do that, because actually it's the breadth and depth of your root network, i.e. your knowledge of yourself, that is the difference, that makes the difference to how you can be. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm, you know, naive in thinking that way.
I love that exercise, Mark. It's one of my favorite things to do with clients, and especially clients who've lost a bit, can't see themselves like you see them. Do you know what I mean? And I did one recently with a chap, and the little trick I did was I did all that, and then I did a little NLP pattern reset. I distracted him from something else, and then he's got 2 daughters. So I said to him, "Oh, I just want to do a little exercise with you. If your daughter brought a man home like this, and I read out all his qualities that he told me, what would you think? He'd go, "Oh, wow, what a guy. I'd say marry him tomorrow." And I said, "Mate, you do realize that's you, don't you?" And his mind was blown to pieces. And he told me that. All I did was reflect it back to him. He told me. He told me his unique gifts and talents. He told me what he brought to the table. He told me what he cared about. He told me what his priorities were. He told me what his values were. I just reflected it back. I literally held the mirror up. And he was blown away by the man he was. Absolutely blown away. And I think if we can do that sort of work, either with ourselves or with a coach or in a group of just getting someone to hold the mirror up. What do I really care about? What do I bring to the table? What am I good at? What lights me up? And if we can find that and then follow our noses, even just little things that we add to our life, that's what I like to do with my clients. When we do exercises like that, I go, right, now you know you're that person. What do you want to add to your life? What do you want to change in your life? What do you want to stop doing? And it's just little things. And when you stop doing the shoulds, the have tos, the must and the ought tos, which take up so much time and energy, you can really start being yourself and cultivating that presence. And when the more I do that, right, the more I realize life flows. It happens for me. It's not happening to me. I'm not a victim of it. I'm a co-creator. But when I'm busy performing and being a version of myself, being a caricature, and I catch myself doing it regularly, because I like being center of attention. And sometimes if people are looking at me, I'll start to perform and say things for effect, right? But when we do that, we send mixed signals out to the world, to our own minds, and then so life feels haphazard and all over the shop. But if we are really tuned in to who we are, so it's like our divine self. When we strip all that back, what do we bring to the table? What are we really here for? What's our part to play in this puzzle, in this life? And it flows and it feels joyful and blissful and amazing.
So I guess that kind of like, for me, just kind of ties it all up really is, so maybe the real question this evening is, what part of you is still performing? And what might happen if we stopped? Maybe that's the question.
There we go. That's next month's title sorted.
Anyway,
that's it. What gap do we have to fill if we stop? Like, that's the challenge we all face.
Oh, always, without a doubt. Anyway, lovely to have you join us. Conscious that Mark now has to go and do like, what is it that you're observing? Sorry, forgot.
Gaelic football. Okay. My daughter's under-13 team has got a Division 7 league game. The important stuff.
So it's an important one. That's the bit I need to know. I mean, I lose all sense of all of the, the leagues and all the rest of it. My sister tries to tell me all of what all of her kids are doing, and I'm just like blinded by science. So I just recognize it's all important and go, yes, brilliant. Fabulous as ever. Go enjoy your evenings. Thank you everyone for joining us, and until next month. I can't remember what day were we doing next month. I will message it. So enjoy.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, cheers everyone.